Kareem rises to the top in the Madrid Derby. Inter Milan return to the Serie A summit, and penalties play a major role for 4 Premier League powerhouses, as well as the newly crowned MLS Cup champs. I'm LME, and I'm here with my beautiful American partners in recapping, Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce, to relive another weekend of high-octane drama. Que Golazo weekend recap begins right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Que Golazo. Thank you so much for being part of the family. If you're listening later on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you know what to do. Please share, spread the word. Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. We're on Twitter, Que Golazo Pod, and YouTube.com, as you know, /Que Golazo. Very close to 6,000 subscribers, closer and closer. I know I've been saying that for like a month, but we really are getting that closer. Let's just get it over the line, please. And right now, if you are engaging with us, we want your questions, your comments, anything you want to throw at Jimmy and Heath. Weekend recap, always, as always, so much action to discuss. Heath Pierce, how are you, buddy?
Heath Pierce disappeared. I'm going to take over for him, LME.
So,
Yeah, you know what?
Jimmy,
he said
just where did he go?
He said the intro was too long. He couldn't wait around anymore. I'm going to take over for Heath Pierce. I know he's doing great. He's always looking handsome, but I'm going to fill his stead for right now until he comes back.
Jimmy, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, LME. It's another unbelievable weekend of games. You know, obviously you had my eyes on MLS Cup. It's a long, arduous season, and NYCFC end up on top. Very proud of them. I was there at the first playoff game at Yankee Stadium when they took on Atlanta United, and really, I thought, demonstrated why they had enough possibility to go on to win, right? You have to be hot at the right time to win MLS Cup, and they made enough plays and had enough guys that stood up and took responsibility to get the results. Pretty dramatic finish, but they got there in the end, and I just want to give a congratulations to NYCFC.
Absolutely. That's why I'm wearing the jersey. As you said, Jimmy Conrad, amazing. They were actually my first ever professional written piece that I sold to Newsweek back in 2015. And, you know, obviously me being a New Yorker, I've come close to understanding what they're all about. Alex Callens, a Peruvian champion as well. Amazing year for him as well. So happy for all our friends, Ian Pouljoy, the Cooligans, just everybody really. So great to see New York City finally for a long time. Last time Yankees won the World Series was 2009. Knicks, forget about it. You know, Mets, forget about it. So, you know, it's good to have a New York title. So well done, NYCFC. By the way, hello to John and Ilyas, everybody, you know, all our loyal followers, Jimmy Conrad, every single week. They're always here on Sunday and they want to ask you questions. It's so great to see our family grow. Oh, there he is. You just listen. Here's the problem. Jimmy was saying you were getting too bored with my intro, even though I give you so much love here. How are you?
I'm doing good. I don't know literally what happened. My cable for my headphone was wrapped over the power cable, so I pulled the power cable out. I had enough battery, and then it just went crazy and said like my camera was no longer connected, that I had no internet, and I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." But yeah, Jimmy's also telling the truth.
Just say your kids.
I didn't want to hear. AKA, I don't want to hear that intro, Luis. Jeez Louise. What is this, your podcast or something?
In a second, I will tell you everything that I did on the weekend, that we won't talk about soccer at all. Anyway, welcome everybody. Heath Pierce, Jimmy Conrad in the house. We're going to talk about, as we were talking about Heath Pierce a little bit a second ago, about MLS Cup and NYCFC, but we got so much to chat about in Europe, of course. And we begin with the game that literally just finished a few minutes ago, the Madrid Derby. It was Real Madrid against Atleti. Basically, this was a conversation that we all had. Real Madrid, if they won, you know, it was a statement to say, well, LaLiga is getting closer to us, I guess. And if Atleti won, it was kind of like their mojo coming back, especially after, you know, securing a knockout stage. And Real Madrid wins it pretty comfortable. Jimmy Conrad, Real Madrid, you know, taking over 2-0. Luka Jovic replaced Benzema later on after he scored. You know, he's playing very well. He set up the beginning to find Vinicius Jr. with 2 assists, by the way, as Asensio seals it for them. What do you make of this, by the way? Real, I mean, the title's done, right? Or what do you think?
Done is strong, because we have seen some wacky things happen in La Liga over the past few seasons. And I feel like at times, if you have that big of a lead, it can come back to bite you, because some complacency could come in. Now, I think that Madrid have benefited from most of their players being healthy for a good period of time. And I'm looking most primarily at the central midfielders, Toni Kroos and Casemiro and Luka Modric. When those three play, it just makes such a big difference. David Alaba has been a breath of fresh air. Militao. It's interesting. The younger players that they signed 3 or 4 years ago, Militao, Vinicius, Rodrigo are really starting to blossom into something special. And I think Vinicius, who had 2 assists today, as you mentioned, is playing so well. I would argue he's probably one of the top 5 players currently playing at the moment, right? Let's just say the start of the season. Vinicius, I think, has to be in that conversation. I'd throw Salah in there, Lewandowski. If I couldn't pick players from the same team, because Benzema would be all right. Bernardo Silva's been very good. Mbappe's been very good. And there's obviously a couple others that I'm sure like, wait, don't forget about this. Yeah, okay, I didn't forget about them, but those are my 5 at the moment. I thought it was a really professional performance from Madrid. Took their chances when they got him. Never really looked troubled. Atleti just, I don't know what that team, they start with Cunha and Griezmann, and then at halftime, Simeone goes, all right, I'm going to put in, Luis Suarez and Joao Felix now. And you're like, well, wait, what? Like, who's your best 11, And I think what bums me out the most as an Atleti supporter is the fact that how many goals they've given up. They've already given up 18 goals so far this season. They've won leagues before. Have gone through full seasons where they don't even give up 18 goals. So that's wild to me that there's a team that Diego Simeone manages that is that leaky defensively. But I just want to give a shout out to Madrid. As you mentioned, is the league over? I mean, they have an 8-point lead over Sevilla, who's in second. They've got a 13-point lead on Atletico and a 15-point lead. Now, actually, 18-point lead over Barcelona with this win. It's feeling they have a game in hand, Barcelona. It's feeling like it's going to be Real Madrid's team league this season for sure.
Yeah, the thing that I would add to that, and to go back on one of Jimmy's points, was the development of players over a few seasons. Obviously, that came with a lot of criticism, right, over those seasons, because the expectation is that you compete for a Champions League title every year, you compete for the league title every year, and if you fall short of one, if not 2 of those at a club like Real Madrid, it's a failure. But you're seeing what the development of those players are, finally finding a comfortable situation with a manager that they can believe in, also finding their own self-confidence, and you're seeing that come to life. I think an even bigger indicator is, again, not just the players that Jimmy mentioned, but I'm looking at, just like you mentioned before, Luka Jovic becoming a key player for this team when they don't have him. Also going back to the fact that Karim Benzema came off in like the 15th or 18th or 20th minute a week ago for an injury, only to come back and play this one and lead the team to get that first goal. And it just shows the importance and the quality of a player that he is right now and the form that he's in, looking at 35 goals in 46 games, I think, coming into this match. So overall, it's just hard to see anybody catching them. When I look at the table, I think about Real Betis. If you watch that game or even watch the highlights, you'll see that Real Betis actually were dominated in the first half, gave up a ton of chances. They could have been behind, but once they got those, they were just clinical in their finishing. And I know there is a value in being clinical in your finishing, but if you looked at the chances that they gave up in that match against another very good side, it becomes problematic to me to think that they can hold on to something like this, or that a better team or a team on another day wouldn't punish them and then give up points throughout the season. I know we're going to get to that as well. But when I'm looking at Real Madrid, I just have trouble seeing anybody being able to weather the storm of a season the way that they can, knowing that not only that, but they almost have to be perfect, knowing that Real Madrid might hit a bump along the way, but everyone else won't be allowed to anymore. And I just don't see where a team is in the league this year if it's not Atletico Madrid who can grind out those results.
Well, those are the standings right there, everybody. And I have a call to action to everybody watching. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. But a question for you. Is this over for La Liga? Do you think Real Madrid has the title wrapped up, or can anybody come in close? Of course, Sevilla is mentioned, 34 points. Obviously, they have a game in hand. But Real Betis, who, taking care of business against Real Sociedad, they are on 33 points, and Atleti in 4th. And Barcelona, by the way, who couldn't get a win against Osasuna, they're all the way in 8th. So is this over for Real Madrid? We got some questions here. Hey, Jimmy, remember when you laughed at me? I said that Barcelona was a mid-table team. When did you laugh at him, Jimmy? I thought you agreed.
He was laughing with him. He was laughing with him.
I guess I'm just trying to be hopeful. Also, I feel like, Barcelona being somewhat competitive makes the world a little bit of a better place, especially for a lot of my friends. But that's fair. I mean, they are a mid-table team. They look like a mid-table team. When they got their 2 leads, we'll just transition into that game against Osasuna. Barcelona, they're the type of team where, like, it's not over yet. They're going to give up a chance. Now it's just a matter of whether the other team can score. I mean, this is against an Osasuna team that looked up for it. They looked like they knew they had a chance to get points off of this particular Barcelona team. And Barcelona scored 2 very good goals. Some of their younger players stepping up. We talked about Vinicius and Militao starting to step up. I think in a few years, we're going to be talking about how special these players are to continue Heath's points about how to develop players, give them opportunities to make mistakes, right? They have to make mistakes. And you have to give them that trust to make mistakes. And I think now Real Madrid is starting to see the benefits of what that looks like. And I think Barcelona will get there too. But to Wall Street's point, Yes. Otherwise, Barcelona look pretty mid-table. They need to get players healthy too. When Ousmane Dembele's on the field and he started, I'm like, what? This guy starts games now and does it regularly? They just look a lot more dangerous. They look a little bit more unpredictable. They need more of that to happen. But defensively, they're so bang average. It's kind of sad to see that they're so vulnerable on that side of the field. And I think it's because they just run out a lot of center backs, not a lot of specific to the outside back position. They need to get a little bit younger there, or at least give Serginho Dest, who they don't seem to be the biggest fans of. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there, I think, with Barcelona. But right now, and Piqué said it after the game, we just have to work on getting top 4. They're not even talking about winning the La Liga title anymore, and they shouldn't be. But it's just crazy how fast they've fallen, because they're only 2 seasons removed from winning the league themselves.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, Jimmy's talking about just sort of the defensive shambles or, the nature of this team. And I look at it on the completely opposite side and say, like, on the offense, it looks like a preseason team where there's so much talent. And at moments you see flashes, but a guy's checking away when he should check back. A player's overlapping when it's crowding space. It just seems like the ideas don't match each other. And it feels like there's 11 players right now trying to figure out, like, who are we as a team? What's the identity? How do we attack? And when you think about Barcelona in general, you think about Man City in general. When you think about passing you to death, the rhythm, the pattern play, where they just always seem to be a step ahead, knowing, 2, 3, 4 passes, a team tries to sort of pin you in and they know exactly where the answer is. Right now, when they get into that final third, it just that lack of sharpness, that lack of confidence, that just lack of ideas, and also that killer instinct of knowing, after 2, 3, 4 passes, when the play presents itself, let's take a chance here. And then you add that to what Jimmy said on the defensive end, and you start to constantly think that, oh, today's going to be the day that we put all of this together. But it's not just 1 or 2 players either. It's constantly where you think you've got a good performance from a couple of players. You got Dembele there again, as Jimmy mentioned. And then it's a couple other players that are young. And that's part of being a young team. I think it's actually great that Piqué is talking about top 4, because it resets the priorities a little bit. It changes the dynamic again of what the expectations are, as opposed to every 3 points thinking that you're losing 3 points towards a title. You can now reset those goals and be like, okay, we're way out of the title race. But top 4, that's actually feels a little bit realistic if we can string together some good results.
Well, they need it. They need it. Financially speaking, they need it. Symbolically, they need it. They need it. So as much as it can be an easier objective, it's still difficult enough. And I guess pressurizing enough, because they need it economically speaking. By the way, a nice little break for Barcelona between matches on Tuesday. They're going to be facing Boca Juniors in the Maradona Cup as well. Barcelona Live will be streaming that game. So a nice little break, to everybody celebrate, obviously, the legacy of Diego Maradona. All right, let's move on here, and let's talk about Serie A, which you can watch exclusively on Paramount Plus, everybody. Who's your team in Serie A, by the way? Everybody would love to know. Make sure that you throw in a comment and engage with us and let us know. But let's talk about Serie A. And it was the other side of Milan, Jimmy Conrad, Inter Milan, who are, taking advantage, I think, of an AC Milan who's doing a little bit of a slow turn, obviously not making it into the knockout stages of the Champions League. No Europe for them, but Inter back on top, leapfrogging AC Milan with a 4-0 win against Cagliari. Des Norris will share the table in a second, but, this basically means now that Inter are top of Serie A with Milan in second, 39 points, 1 under 40 points for Inter. And what do you make of Inter right now? Lautaro Martinez as well, going in double figures.
Yeah, outside of them losing to Real Madrid on the last match day in the group stages of the Champions League, when they'd already qualified. So it was really about who's going to get the top spot, which is important. But for them to get back into the knockout rounds for the first time in 10 years was a big deal. That was the hurdle they had to overcome. And they did that. They had 5 clean sheets in a row domestically, and they added another one today against Cagliari, and they did it in a way that was, again, very professional, very much like Madrid. And Lautaro has actually scored more goals against Cagliari than anybody else in Serie A. So he definitely likes making that happen. They just look good. They're also healthy, right? We talk about Madrid. They found an 11 that works for them, and now they're building off of that consistency and that camaraderie that comes with having the same 11, or maybe you tinker here and there. But it makes a difference when you can roll out the same types of guys game in and game out. And then you add a little bit of depth when you need it. But I think Inter's in a good spot. They don't have any significant injuries, and they're playing extremely well right now. And let's be honest, Cagliari's only got 1 win this whole season, and they're in the relegation zone. So if you can't beat a team that's in the relegation zone at home, then I don't know if you should be title contenders.
Yeah, these are wins that you need to take.
They have to, and they needed to take it, and they did. Whereas in contrast with AC Milan, who are away to Udinese, who just fired their manager, so they have that new manager bounce. They couldn't necessarily get it going in the same type of way, and they needed Zlatan to save them yet again. Very similar to how Man United needs Cristiano Ronaldo to save them at times, where they need kind of that star guy to make it happen. Did they deserve more of the points? I don't know. Udinese I thought was pretty sharp, but those are going to be 2 big drop points for sure for Milan.
But this is the dangerous thing. We've talked about this so much about Ronaldo and Zlatan being a central figure to a team that now is dependent on them like a drug. They are addicted to the needs of the output of these players, and it makes it very hard to move on or change anything, because that means that to get your goals, you have to rely on a few of these players. But it ultimately means the other 10 players on the field have to play differently in order to get those goals from those players. And granted, we're talking about penalties here, and that's still a value. But when those players are on the field, your team has to play different for those 90 minutes than you would perhaps otherwise if you weren't reliant on those star players. And that's the give and take of these situations. But we've been talking about this for years for Zlatan, for Ronaldo. Every year that goes by, you're like, could this be the year where the output drops? Or could this be the year where sort of the balance ends? And obviously, they're going to score forever. And as long as they're playing, they're going to score crazy goals. But I agree with you, Jimmy. It's dangerous. When I look at AC Milan right now and think about their odds or their chances of winning the title, I feel quite differently than I did. I feel very similar to the way that I did this time last year, where it just seems like, okay, now they're out of Europe. They should be able to go and get points. They should be able to focus on these types of things. But I still worry about the depth of this team. I still worry about the fact that they should be weaning off of Zlatan in terms of his output, but he's still going to seemingly the answer of when you need him on the field, which I think is not a confident thing. When you look at Inter Milan, yes, they're playing against a team in the relegation zone, but it's a clinical performance. They never let them into the match at any single point. You could feel the dominance. You could feel that it was a team fighting for a title versus a team that's at the bottom. And at times, AC Milan allow other teams to feel a little more level to them in terms of what they're bringing to the table. So I think there's a big difference there. And then when I look at Juventus and I think about Venezia, you go, wow, fantastic performance and fight from Venezia playing at home. But if you're Juventus, you're thinking, wow, okay, you lose Dybala early on in the match. But I'm thinking about the Gerard Piqué quote for Juventus too, of like, oh, fighting for a top 4. There shouldn't even be a discussion, and perhaps there isn't. And maybe I'm just reading the wrong things, that their only fight is a top 4, and they're not getting it done either. So when you think about the weekends like this that win you titles, when you think about the games that you look back on, you go, that's a turning moment or a transition moment, or when we did it and the others didn't. This is a weekend where everyone's dropping points except for Napoli.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, and there was a good comment there from Larry who said that this happened with Zlatan at LA as well. We could argue this happens to Zlatan in a lot of places that he goes to, including the Swedish national team, right? All of a sudden he comes back into the fold and Sweden doesn't play as well because I feel like their balance is off and everybody's deferring to the big star. Now, one thing I wanted to add to Milan, and I'll talk about Juve here a little bit as well, but with Milan, they made 3 changes at halftime. And I was really surprised that Tonali and Kessie didn't start. And he went with Benacer and Bakayoko, and those guys didn't look sharp. Now, I understand Stefano Pioli and the manager trying to rotate a little bit, thinking, all right, maybe we can get some out of these guys, get some rest for some other players. But they were in a certain mode. They were playing with a certain group of players that were getting results. And then when you make 2 significant changes in the middle of the field and it doesn't look good, the fact that you immediately pull the trigger and say, all right, we're just going to change it and go back to what we were doing, I think that gives some I don't know, some negative messaging to the players that like, maybe I don't trust you to show up in these games. So I think that will hurt you down the line. But similar to what I said about Atleti, and I'm trying to get a theme going throughout my comments today on this podcast, is what is their best 11? And can they continue to find that consistency? We're seeing it with Inter. We're seeing it with Real Madrid, that when they kind of stay with the same lineup, they're starting to get more results and starting to build something and getting momentum. And I think that AC Milan missed the mark in this particular game. With Juve, even though Dybala went out, they were all over Venezia in that first half. It should have been 3-0 Juve. And when they didn't finish their chances, I knew that Venezia was going to get back into that game. Aramu has been unbelievable. I'm surprised he's with Venezia. He's a tremendous player. He ended up scoring.
Yeah, but Jimmy, even Venezia in the second half, they were still 2 center backs on yellow cards, and they didn't even try to punish them in that sense or draw any.
Right.
Draw a second yellow, attack them, knowing that they
can't
poke at anything, and they didn't convert on that. I mean, it's very rare that you have 2 center backs on yellow cards, and when you have that situation, just the way the game is now, you have to attack that. You have to just force them to either allow you to go past them or stick their foot out or test that situation.
I think not having Chiesa and Kulusevski really hurt Juve. those players that do run at center backs, that do run at wingers, right? That put you on the back foot a little bit. And I think they missed a little bit of that, especially when Dybala went out.
Yeah, no, very, very good points. I do want to go back to Inter Milan, just wrap it up with that, because I think it is commendable that, they do have financial issues, etc. That's why Antonio Conte partly left, and, they but they had to say goodbye to Romelu Lukaku and some other players and stuff, and they had to kind of retransform themselves once again under Simone Inzaghi. So it's pretty commendable that they're top of Serie A right now. Obviously, plenty of matches still to go, but the fact that they're still in it, who also is still in it? Atalanta, despite, their exit in the Champions League, they're flying domestically, 6 wins from 6, beating Verona 2-1 as well. Fiorentina, 4-0 against Salernitana. Dusan Vlahovic. Guys, the Capocannonieri race in Serie A is kind of crazy right now. Dusan Vlahovic, 32 league goals in 2021. Then it's Ciro Immobile, I think in Serie A goal scoring charts as well with 13. And then Giovanni Simeone, I think Natalie said it earlier, he's kind of doing the opposite of what his dad usually likes to do, which is like retain, hold. It's just like, give me the ball. I'm just going to score from whatever because, Lucky Lady Luck is with me the whole time. I mean, he's a great striker, but he's always in the right places. Lautaro Martinez, 10. Duan Zapata. Good to see Zapata there as well. This is a crazy race right here, Heath Pierce. And then Jimmy chime in on the top scoring charts. Dusan Vlahovic. Fabrizio Romano did say it from day one. Watch out for this kid, and this kid is special.
Yeah, I love when you see young players or players not at the biggest clubs or not the biggest names yet leading Golden Boot races in any of the leagues. But, for me particularly, I look at Lautaro Martinez knowing that he's in form right now. He's at 10 goals. I think he finished the season last year around 17 goals in the league or in Serie A at least. And I think about the fact that, like you said, they lose Romelu Lukaku. That is a huge hole, whether it was financial or otherwise. This is the guy that you relied upon to get you that title. And now to see another player being willing to step up, Lautaro Martinez, he's on pace. I guess we're almost at the halfway point for 20 goals on the season. Another increase in that, and certainly one that you need. And you need players in form. Jimmy talks about what's your best 11, and I don't know if that's changed. And I would love for you guys to take on this, maybe today, maybe another time, of the substitutions changing the way the game is, that you don't know your best 11 now when you're talking about 5 substitutions in a game. You're talking about changing the dynamic, how they sub in blocks and things like that. Everything just seems to be shifting in terms of the game. But again, to go back to my main point, so I would love your take on that sometime. So don't forget, guys. And anybody that's watching this, I would love write that down. Anybody that's watching this, I want your take on that as well. But yeah, it just again, when I look at that list of players, I love seeing younger players or less known players at smaller clubs really doing this, because you're starting to see who's going to get the big transfer fee that haven't been getting the attention that perhaps they deserve.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Renato Jose from Brazil. Vamos porra, mi amigo. Hope you're doing well. I mixed a couple languages there, but I hope you're doing okay. Thank you for the support as always. Now, with regard to Vlahovic, I'm very curious to see if he makes a move in the January transfer window. I'm hearing rumors of Man City, at least from the Premier League perspective, Arsenal, and even Tottenham being in there. So I'm very curious.
70 million is a bargain, man.
It is a bargain. He's been fantastic. I mean, 15 goals so far this season, and yes, he takes penalties, but so do a lot of the top goal scorers around the world. With regard to Heath's point, really quick, I just want to give a shout out to Joao Pedro, who has got 9 goals for Cagliari, who didn't score today against Inter, but it's been hard to score against Inter lately. And then Beto from Udinese. He's been fantastic. And actually, he's been partnering with all you Premier League fans out there. Gerard Deulofeu, who, Everton famous? He's been excellent this season as well. He's got 5 goals and 3 assists in Serie A. So a fun partnership there at Udinese. But it is fun to see those younger players, lesser known players, get on the top scoring charts and see if they can realize a dream and make a bigger move to a bigger club. But Vlahovic is going to be an interesting signing. And I wonder, because Lacazette scored for Arsenal, if he's like, oh man, I'm hearing that Vlahovic might be coming to the Gunners, I might want to pick up my game because he scored a pretty good goal this past weekend. But I know we'll get into the Premier League here pretty soon. But I'm excited about Vlahovic's future.
I believe Dusan Vlahovic turned down Arsenal. He was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll stay around there and try my luck." Hey, by the way, Gianluca Lapadula has 10 goals in Serie A. I just want to say in Serie A.
What a great investment for Rocco Commisso, the American owner, to be able to now have this in his back pocket, knowing that he's going to get this big old transfer fee. Who's, if anybody watches it, the owners are very prevalent, or presidents are very prevalent in Serie A. Very other few leagues are like that, where they're front and center. They speak to the press. They're much more involved. They do press game conferences. They talk tactics and things like that. It's a very bizarre thing. But for him, I mean, what a great investment to know that you're going to have a young player like that sold on for a lot of money soon.
100%. We got a question about what's his ceiling. I mean, chime in, guys, but this guy could be, I do believe he could go into being the top 5, top 3 strikers for a long period of time. He's that good. I mean, I've been watching him a little bit ever since Fabrizio chimed in about him, and he's very special. He's a special player. And ironically enough, or maybe not so, he does Gabriel Batistuta things as well to me sometimes. And it's funny that he plays for Fiorentina as well. By the way, there's crisis in Serie A as well. Napoli lose to Empoli, down to 4th. I mean, there we were talking about Napoli, their chance to do something special. But now 4 points from the last 5 matches. You talked about Juve, Jimmy, earlier on. They dropped points to Venezia. Lazio slumped to defeat versus 10-man Sassuolo. And of course, we already talked about Zlatan needing a last gasp point against Udinese to close out a rough week for Milan. Who would you say, Jimmy, is a team that, my goodness, you're going to keep going down and down and down, or perhaps, the dreams of getting either top 4 or even winning the whole thing is over?
I'd say Lazio stands out in some capacity because their defending isn't great. And even though they might be doing sorry ball on the attacking side, I don't know if they're looking so consistently good on the defensive side. I'm not surprised by Napoli, just to transition into them, because they have so many injuries to key players, especially in the spine of their team. That
poor Chucky Lozano, by the way.
Yeah,
And
I know. It's just one injury after another for Napoli and for Chucky Lozano in particular. But I'd also add that it's just they weren't going to play that well the whole season, right? They were just going to have a natural, just like every season. There's always a tough time for every team in every season. And Napoli was going to have that. Now they're probably having that coupled with the fact that they're missing so many key players. And it's a bit of a shame because that they've got a really special team. And if everybody had stayed healthy, I think they would have been easy title contenders in Italy. Then Roma, I think, is already fallen apart. That's no big surprise. Juve, they're still trying to kind of regain the identity that they used to have under Maxi Allegri. Atalanta, I really like. I think it's between both Milan teams. If Napoli can get healthy, in Atalanta, but I think Juve, Roma, Lazio aren't title contenders this year.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say differently than that is, for me, the focus is AC Milan. Just knowing that, again, they're kind of set up perfectly right now to go for a title race, and they're the ones that I'm worried about the most. Napoli have their excuse of injuries, right? Atalanta are going to go sort of punch for punch and just try to outscore everyone to the end, which I think could work and actually could be finishing in the top 2 at the end of this year. But when I'm looking at Inter Milan and I'm looking at AC Milan, I'm like, man, that's the team that seemed like when I was watching them earlier on in the year, or even just a few weeks ago, they had an understanding of how to grind games out and how to get those results that you need. And then all of a sudden overnight, it's like result after result that they seem to fall short. And I started to question, am I looking through this at the wrong lens of just assuming they've learned from last season? Because they've got all the pieces. They've got enough depth considering the competitions that they're in that you would think that first they would start with that result against Udinese, and then they'd go on for the rest of the season, the second half of this year, knowing that they're in a key contention. And also, when I thinking about their schedule coming up, Napoli have to play Milan in their next game. They have Spezia, and then they have Juventus to kick off the new year. And then on the Milan side, Napoli, Empoli, and Roma, AC Milan I'm speaking about. It's not an easy run over the next few games, and that's where you could start to see perhaps Inter Milan finding themselves a little bit of a gap in the table, which is going to be hard to come back from, considering they can, again, taste this feeling from last year and know that there is kind of blood in the water, so to speak, and a chance for them to really give themselves a gap.
Yeah, some sexy matches coming up and some very important narratives to end the year in Serie A, which you can exclusively watch on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports. We're going to take a break, but if you're watching live, we're coming right back on podcast. It's a little bit longer of a break, but when we come back, the Premier League. Does VAR need VAR? We ask. MLS Cup final thoughts and much more. Que Golazo weekend recap. Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, we are back. We told you so. Let's continue with the rest of the weekend action. We're going to get to MLS Cup later on as we wrap up, we promise. But let's go to the Premier League obviously, in terms of results, etc., you all know what happened. If not, we'll let you know in a second. But there were many penalties awarded specifically for those contenders. And a lot of them, and some would venture to say all of them, needed some second guessing, some judgment calls there, because Liverpool, Chelsea, ×2, by the way, Man City, Manchester United as well, all received penalties that really, in some occasions, deserved a second look. In some other occasions, the ref didn't even need advice or whatever. So there was a lot of situations this weekend, Heath Piers, where I was very disappointed with VAR. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a supporter of making sure technology helps the game. It's just that now I'm beginning to see how it's not even being utilized the right way. And penalties were a massive protagonist this weekend. What say you?
Yeah, I think the issue, again, is that once you go to review, if you were to have a booth review an entire game, just review the game, you would find penalties everywhere. If you were to call a penalty on it and then review it in slow motion and watch it from all the angles, it's really hard to overturn things that in real time there's a different level of objectivity. If you turn it into a review where you slow it down, I mean, Jimmy would have given up thousands of penalties if somebody just followed Jimmy.
Agree to disagree.
If you just followed Jimmy for his entire career, defending in the box and all the little things you need to do, nudge, bump, pull, like get guys off balance. If somebody were to just zone in on that and say, we're going to just follow this and review it, there are penalties there constantly. And that's the hard thing, is when a ref has the confidence to go to the penalty. If you go to the booth, even if it's controversial, it's hard to overturn them because body positioning, you're taking out the speed of the game, the context of the game, and you're just looking at a single thing that it's really hard to overturn it. And I think that's a big problem because now you can just call it, and then to overturn is hard. Now, I think I prefer to allow, now that we've got it, referees to just let it fly. And if somebody says, hey, you should take a second look at this, that's different. I think you should go back and watch this. That's different. But if a ref calls it and you're forced to go into this very slow motion, every single angle, that's going to continue to be a problem where you'll find what you want to find, or it's hard to overturn or argue the fact when you break it all down. So at least that's my take on it. So I don't know how you improve that other than allowing more flow of the game and allowing VAR to have more power on their end than the ref making the call and then being able to have this 4-person team back them up every time, because in most cases they will. Okay,
I have one idea to that. But before I get there, I just want to state for the record that second penalty that Chelsea got, where Rudiger kind of just gets his foot, that is so bad. It's so bad.
Rudiger got 2 penalties, by the way.
It's so bad. That second one in particular is so bad, and almost in some ways embarrassing for the game that's what we're calling. That needs to change. And where I think the idea now can come in, because that was the one I actually had the biggest issue with, was can you get a former player involved in the VAR booth? Can you get somebody in there that has maybe a little bit more of that experience in certain moments, whether you agree with that person or not, but just so they're in the room and be like, well, think
what
about
position, Jimmy? What position of a player do you think should be in that
center
booth?
back, of course.
Yeah, because you can't put a striker.
You
can't put a striker in there. That's for sure. It should be midfielders and defenders, because the striker should be like,
say center mid. Yeah, I was going to say center mid.
You could vet whoever you wanted to get in there, but I think there's enough former players out there that I think you'd get enough volunteers. You can pay them for their time, of course, but just to have that voice to say, hey, maybe think about it like this. I don't think he has to be the one that's in the ear of the referee, but I think you're in that room together saying, hey, if we're going to take a minute and actually look at this, here's what a former player's perspective would be. And I just think that would give it a little bit more of a 360 view of what's actually happening. And somebody to go in there and be like, boys, listen, or girl, whoever's in there, this is bullshit. That is a bad call, and it shouldn't. It's gonna change the game in a way that it shouldn't. I don't think anybody would be upset if it didn't get called. Just some kind of perspective that's a little bit different from like a traditional referee.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. You know what? I'll raise you another idea because I'm specifically thinking about the Liverpool Villa game where there were 2 situations, and I'm not even going to be here to be one should be one shouldn't be, but both cases, the referee was not asked to just have another look. And I think there should be a situation when, because here's what's happening. There's inconsistency when the ref is being asked or not asked to just give that a double check, because it's very difficult to assess it in lifetime, especially since now we have VAR assistance to make sure that you can have a better decision making. Here's one I have for you. How about we do this? Something that I do enjoy about the NFL is that, is the challenge system. I'm wondering, and only in penalty situations, literally just penalty situations, not even free kicks, nothing, penalty situations. The manager of each team has a challenge available per game. So, for example, if we do Liverpool Aston Villa, right, at the very end, Danny Ings has the ball. Alisson, who was very vulnerable in that game, is spreading his arms, and it does seem that he got Danny Ings and not the ball as he fell inside the box. Many situations in the past that penalty that would have been given as a penalty. The ref didn't get any advice from anybody say, I think you need to look at that. If there was a challenge system, Steven Gerrard in that moment could be like, I want to use my challenge. Can you please have a second look?
Right.
The ref has a second look, and maybe the decision gets overturned. Maybe it doesn't, but at the very least, the manager now has a little bit of power. Only just once, by the way. It's not like he has 3. It's not like he has 5 challenges. Just once. One time. He loses that challenge, that's it. If he gets correct, maybe he keeps that challenge back. I'm just saying that maybe we can be a little bit creative, because more often than not only are people complaining whether it's a pen or not, but the ref is now not being talked about and being recommended to have a second look. And that worries me. That worries me a little bit. I don't know if you guys want to chime in as we move on, but to me, that's something that maybe could be done. I mean, I think that part of the problem is that the manager sometimes feels helpless, because even though we have this technology, it's not being used. And that's how Steven Gerrard felt this weekend, I think.
I would just jump in and say really quick, I'll just, from a purist perspective, it'll just slow down the flow of the game. They're trying to, and I understand there's some more technology that's coming in that's going to make everything faster, especially on offside calls, where you're going to get that information in a millisecond as opposed to having to wait 30 seconds. They're trying to figure out ways to cut it down from 30 seconds or a minute to get it down to 5 to 10 seconds so that we can move the game along and keep that normal pace. I like it in theory. I just wonder how much pushback you would get, because
it's very quick. The manager goes to the fourth official. Sure. Like, listen, I the ref hasn't given it. He's not being told to have a second look. I want to use my challenge.
I get it. I think it would be kind of cool. I want to see these little like NFL red flags come into the middle of the
yeah. He doesn't get to go to the fourth official. He's got to toss something, dude. You got to. It's because then you can get it. Then a sponsor can buy whatever the review is.
Let's say we have a challenge. Let's say they do have a challenge. What manager would throw the shit out of that?
Throw it at the referee?
Yeah. Who would do it? Like,
Mourinho for sure jumps out of me.
Antonio Conte says
he drop it by his foot and then make somebody come and get it next to him.
Yes, that's Conte funny. Would throw something else other than the red flag. I think he'd be sorry. By the way, Natalie, you had a good idea. NBA, if the one that gets fouled takes the penalty. Usually in Man United's case, because he's always in the box, is Ronaldo. But that would be kind of
imagine Rudiger taking penalties today. You know what I mean?
I love that idea from Natalie. I'm a fan of that. I actually think it would be pretty cool to have that step up.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you earn it, you got to take it.
I like it too.
All right, but the ones that are like the discrepancy, like if there's a handball, then I think you can have your designated penalty person take it. You know what I mean? Then it can be a Ronaldo. But if you draw the penalty, then you should take it. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, let's stay in the Premier League, because I am worried, Jimmy, about Newcastle. When are we not worried about Newcastle?
I'm not worried.
No, you already know the writing on the wall.
I'm in the phase of acceptance right now.
They just recently won. They just recently won. What do you mean? I think now they're one win, one loss in their last 2 games.
What did I tell you, by the way, in the weekend preview? I said that, even though they won against Burnley, they really looked super vulnerable. And look what Leicester City just did. Jimmy, are they going to be the richest club in the Championship? Is January the make or break situation for them? What do they have to do to avoid the drop?
I think we have everybody right where we want them.
I couldn't even wait till you finished saying that to last. Sorry, I was going to let you carry that bit for a while, but
sure. So we got Liverpool, coming up, and we got City, United, Everton away, Southampton away. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's like that one meme. Everything's fine. This is
the dog in the firehouse. That's Newcastle. Yeah.
When I watched the game, like basically through this, like I'm barely looking through my eyes, through my hands to like watch this game. We're just terrible defensively. It's so bad defensively. Like one half chance turns into like a full chance. And that has to stop. I actually feel like when I think about Newcastle overall, they need to start from the back and work their way up to the front, because we have players that have sauce up top that can win games or get opportunities. Callum Wilson's this good, serviceable Premier League player. Alain Saint-Maximin obviously got a ton of talent. Miguel Almiron, when he's free and actually can pick up a ball and run it at players, which is hard for him. Then because there's just like he doesn't get the ball in the right spots. I don't think we have players that help the team transition. There's a lot to unpack here. It's going to be a struggle. And if we go down, then we go down, and then we have to figure out how to pick up the pieces from that. But sometimes you got to take a step or two back to take a couple big steps forward, and that might be the play. This is somebody that's like trying to find the silver lining in this whole situation. It just sucks.
Do either of you think that, because I was thinking about this today, and I was like, would it be easier to go into the championship is notoriously difficult. But if you look at the teams like RB Leipzig and Juventus when they had to go down and Rangers when they had to go up, if you stack the deck, you can actually create a team that's far better than anybody in the championship. And actually have a realistic shot of just winning the championship again. Now, it is a completely different style of play. You're playing teams that are going to play you differently, different pitches, different environments. I get that. But do you think that that's easier to do than getting 2-3 players and surviving in this season? Or is it better build than having a few Band-Aids this year? Now you're stuck with those Band-Aids, or do you think they have a plan in place to go and like sign a few big signings that are going to change the world for them? Because it is not just 1 or 2 players that are going to change the whole dynamic of. Now there could be 1 or 2 veteran players or players that shore up your back line, make you harder to beat, and then allow, like you said, the team to be a little bit more predictable on offense or when they're attacking. But I mean, that was I'm stuck between because playing 46 or whatever games, 48 games is a long season, no matter who you're putting on the field.
I mean, essentially what you're asking, Heath, and we ask everybody watching, is Newcastle going to avoid the drop? If the answer is no, can they come right back up with all that money, with all that infrastructure? And the third question for you all, Jimmy, back to you. Eddie Howe, what do you make of that?
I like him as a hire. I think he's a guy that knows how to get a lot out of a little. He did it with Bournemouth for many years with a small budget. Now he's got a bigger budget. Whether they trust him with it is something entirely different. We've had this discussion before. We can get into it a little bit again. I don't know who the first domino is going to be in terms of signings. I don't know who that first big signing is going to be.
And who wants to come to a club?
But isn't it weird that we're in the middle of December and that hasn't kicked off? That rumor mill hasn't kicked off?
I think part of it is that for the British-based players, I don't think they want to live in Newcastle. I think they want to live in Manchester or Liverpool, or they want to live in London. They don't want to go out.
I don't think they want to live in Liverpool. To be
okay, maybe. Okay, I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying that I don't think it's a desirable location. If this was a struggling team in London, I think you get a lot more players that were a little bit more.
I think it's more about players who are perhaps in other teams who are thinking of Europe next year or even playing in Europe right now.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But the city means a lot, right? With the competitions that you're playing in. We're looking at Bernardo Silva wants to leave because he's like, I don't love it here, but we are a beautiful
city. I'm gonna stand up for Newcastle. They're a beautiful city. It's more about whether an international player can go there and understand the Geordie accent. That's
well, that's I wasn't trying to take a shot at Newcastle.
No, I know what you were saying. Staying in London.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that
every city's a beautiful city in Europe. It's historic, it's nice, it's whatever. But it's not the same thing socially of what attracts people to some of the bigger markets, right? Weather is all relative, but in terms of if you're playing Champions League football, if you're playing at a top in a top team, the city becomes secondary to that. But if you can have it all, if you're a big player and somebody's saying, hey, you can go to, somewhere in London or somewhere like Newcastle and be part of a project, it's going to require a pretty big check to write for them personally to weigh those two options.
Listen, it's not all doom and gloom as to mathematically speking, right? A win, and then obviously
of course.
Watford and Southampton, who are still obviously just hovering over there. Only takes
honestly, you win 3 straight games, and everybody's like, "All right, cool, we're gonna make it." So I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, look at the table right here.
That's a big ass 3 straight games.
I can't believe you said 3 straight games.
Okay, fine, 2 straight games. But what I'll add is that I love that you use the word infrastructure, because if we're talking about a proper project and you're going to invest that type of money that they have, then you have to start with the youth academy. You have to start with your scouts. You have to get into like every single area to make this as professional of an experience and of an organization as possible. And I think they need to work on all of it. So if you went down to the championship or if you stay in the Premier League, you still have to address all these other things. Obviously, it's going to be easier to maybe attract that player, get a more of a head start if you stay in the Premier League for all the things that we've already mentioned. But if we went down to the championship, it would be difficult. But we did it already with Mike Ashley and Rafa Benitez.
And
it's not like we haven't already proven.
Championship.
He knows. I'm not. It would suck, but if Newcastle really want to get back up and be a team that's contending, they have to do all these other things right.
Yeah,
you can't just do one thing right. Everything has to be done right at every level for it to really truly be a success.
Sometimes you got to break the entire kingdom.
Yeah.
Jimmy, how are you feeling about Cambridge United coming into St. James's Park in the FA Cup third round? Nicholas Murray, I know very well how you feel about your Cambridge United. Thank you for the question. FA Cup. I'm sure it'll be a breeze after Man City, Liverpool, and Manchester United. I think Nicholas is feeling confident, Jimmy Conrad, about Cambridge United.
Listen, we like cup competitions. Our fans in particular. We'll undo our pants and whip out our thingy. And when Alain Saint-Maximin scores a goal, we'll punch horses. Okay, that's what we do. That's how excited we get as Newcastle fans. So
I'll tell you one thing, though. Here's one thing, by the way. If they are able to get anything, a point out of Liverpool, Man City, or Manchester United, that could revitalize some kind of fire, I think. Do you see them, Heath, winning any of those games? Or getting a point?
A point, maybe, but I think, again, you look past those, as Jimmy mentioned, we laughed about 3 in a row, but there's somewhere in January, February, and I don't have the schedule directly in front of me, where they're going to see this window of like, if we can get a run of form, or you get a point, it builds a little confidence. But it's against those other teams that that you've got a shot of getting 3 points. Perhaps you have a homestand, and if you can get 9 out of 12, or 9 out of whatever 15 in a month.
Heath, that actually comes to them at the very beginning of January. They travel to Southampton, doable. Cup match, right? At home to Watford, away at Leeds, at home to Everton. I mean, those are games that you can get points. But after that, it gets very tricky. Villa, West Ham.
You don't want to throw Villa in there as easy points, man? That's up.
I'm not throwing Villa there. All right, fine. I'll put him in there. Fine.
Just kidding.
Just to ease your ego.
No, there's no ego attached to Newcastle.
That's very true. Hey, Jimmy, listen. The thing is, I got a very soft spot for Newcastle United. It's Norberto Solano's birthday today.
That's right. Happy birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's wrap up the Premier League, by the way. That's it. Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about MLS Cup, baby. New champions. My local team, NYCFC. Well done, Ian Paul Joy. Nice Cooligans. Ronnie Taylor stripped away. He lived up to his bet. Tati Castellanos, who I really don't think is going to be in the league much longer. He's quite a talent, but my goodness. NYCFC break hearts in Providence Park, and they beat. But guess what? It was dramatic, because always it has to be dramatic. It was a pretty poor game, I think. And then MLS got MLS-ish with Gio Savares' Portland Timbers equalizing literally in the final seconds to take it to extra time. And that's when you thought, my God, the momentum has shifted. And it did in many ways. And Sean Johnson, Jimmy Conrad, rightly so, saluting his friend as well. So good in goal. And Alex Callens, the Peruvian, ends it all up. Heath Pierce, a sad end to Diego Valetti's Timbers career, but NYCFC, for the first time in their history, MLS Cup champions.
Yeah, again, in the preview of that game, I had Timbers all the way home, that crowd. But, clearly we talked about Castellanos coming back into this match, the role that he would play. And then when they got that goal at the end, I was like, oh, it's written in the stars. It's exactly how you wanted. The crowd was crazy. It brought them back to life, this belief of like, it's actually going to happen. But anytime things are left to penalties. And look, by the way, Sean Johnson, somebody that I've talked about as being replaceable as the number 3 in the national team, just because of the fact that he's number 3 and he's not young. But when you put on performances like that, you go, oh, that's why you have a number 3, because they're that good. And if you get called upon at the national team level or the international level, you want to be able to believe that that person coming in is not a project. They are ready to step up and lead the national team. And Sean Johnson's been in the national team pool for a long time. So it wasn't about that as much as I've been critical of like, how do you use that number 3 position? But clearly he's a fantastic player, and actually now starts to give you the argument of like, Could he be a number 2? Is he being left out of that conversation? I know it's a conversation for another time. We'll get to that tomorrow on USMNT Hour. But with regard to this MLS Cup, it's a fantastic thing to see that team be able to pull it off in the way that they did. Portland is a notoriously difficult place to play. The conditions were not favorable. Even the MLS Cup trophy, when they rolled it out onto the field, didn't want to stay up in those conditions. And
that was so MLS-ish as well.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, it was early December or mid-December MLS Cup in terms of the weather that you expect in the Northwest and the intensity of it and the fan and the atmosphere. It's just unfortunate for Diego Valeri that this is the end of his career, but you can't have it all. I would love to have gone out on top too, but that's just the realities of a playing career.
You're always on top, Heath.
I got into a bit of a disagreement with one of my friends who said that MLS Cup was boring. It was difficult to watch. And I said, dude, listen, that's just the final. I was at the 2014 World Cup final at the Maracanã versus Argentina versus Germany. World-class players on both teams.
So boring.
Was awful. It was awful. I'm like, this is the World Cup final. And then I was at the Champions League final between Liverpool and Tottenham.
Oh, that was terrible.
It was terrible. I'm like,
no, final
and they're
sucks,
like,
dude.
MLS. They're like, MLS sucks. And blah. I'm like, dude, it's not MLS. It's just a final. The finals just suck.
Yeah,
there's so much tension. Yeah. There's so much pressure. There's so much of everything. Everybody doesn't want to make a mistake. They don't want to be the one person that's going to be held responsible for breaking the hearts, not just of their team, but of all the fans, a whole city. All of a sudden, you have a city that's finally paying attention to you, especially at the sport in this country. Everything's riding on it, and you can feel it. And it takes a really experienced person, I'd say, to be able to handle that and be able to go on and play at the level that they're usually accustomed to without feeling that. And
that's why series are good. Final series in sports are when people go, oh, that was a great series. But when you get one game in any sport, whether it's football, soccer, whatever, you go, yeah, that's two teams that are just feeling each other out for a while.
And by the way, we ended up getting drama. I mean,
we did. I'm glad that goal got scored at the end, for sure.
Jimmy, by the way, Luis, that's a great point, because somebody else had told me that some of their friends that were sort of on the peripheral of being fans of the game, that were fans of sports, that were like, that was like the drama of that buildup, seeing that happen, like that made it all worthwhile to me. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Part of it. But like, if you judge it based on the quality, then judge it on the quality of every final ever of any sport that has a single game. They're not that good. The build up and the drama and all that stuff is completely different. But as a full match of any kind, it's like Jimmy said, it's finals suck.
Yeah, they do. They suck more often than not. So I wasn't surprised, and I tried to tweet out there that finals are choppy. There's not a lot of rhythm. Even if you have a top player like Maxi Morales at number 10, who's cute as a button, by the way. It's one of my catchphrase for small playmakers. But if you see a player like that, you go and you chop him down as fast as you possibly can. You don't want that guy to get going and feel good about himself in a final. Like, that's just how games are played in those particular things. So I wasn't trying to necessarily win an argument. I was just trying to understand what it means to be in a final first.
Yeah,
and they backed off. They backed off. But fair play to NYCFC. I think on the balance, they were the better team through the 120 minutes that we saw. I thought they had more guys trying to step up and do something. They were trying to be more assertive in the game. And I think they deserve to win. Now, to the question we had before, should there be an asterisk next to this win because NYCFC were the beneficiaries of taking on the Philadelphia Union team that were missing 6 or 7 starters that probably would have changed the outcome of that game? It's hard not to want to put that next to it, but those are the sign of the times, as I think Heath Pierce said the last time around, and it's not fair, especially to Philly. But what are you going to do?
It's not NYCFC's fault.
It's not their fault. It's not their fault.
Right? So it's their journey that they all followed. But it's a valid point, but it's not NYCFC. Their only objective was win MLS Cup. And you know what? Before that, they beat New England. So, who's to say what? At Gillette Stadium. So it's not like it was an easy route or a journey. They did a tremendous job. So well done. I'm very happy as well for Tyvon Gray, by the way, the first Bronx native to sign for the club as well. It's good to see a local talent do his thing. So that's it. NYCFC win MLS Cup. Well done indeed. All right, let's do some final thoughts before we say goodbye. I want to remind you, because I don't want to forget, but we're doing a live watch, a watch along of the Champions League draw. It's a little early for my boys here, Jimmy and Heath, but and they'll be on USMNT hour duty as well later that day. But James Benj will join us, and we got a bunch of guests, by the way. for the watch along. It's going to be super fun. I might even be in my pajamas watching. It's going to be 5:50 a.m. All right, for me. So like we're going to be doing it. I did mention it, Des. I mentioned Alex Callens early on. What? Oh, you want me to? How
mention?
Listen, we probably don't have any more Chilean followers because I keep talking about Peru. Alex Callens, what a year for you. Yes, dale, compadre, mi causa. Excellent. All right. So final thoughts, everybody. Le Classique, PSG, Monaco. You want to go there? Brest's glorious run, by the way, ends with a 4-0 loss to Montpellier. Bayern pull further away as Dortmund draw. Chris Richards opens his Bundesliga account with a winning goal. And Leipzig's post-March week beats Man City and Gladbach. So a lot to discuss. Heath Pierce, final thoughts from you. Anything?
Yeah, the post-March thing is just a realization to me, and it could be just a new manager bounce, so to speak, but you could also just feel the confidence of players coming back that perhaps he wasn't the right manager. It doesn't make him a bad manager, but, perhaps he wasn't the right manager. And then my part two to that was that Alexis Sanchez, for the Chilean fans out there, almost scored, and it was good this weekend. So that's a little...
that's Chile for you, the almost team. All right, let's keep going. It was not true. They've won a lot, actually. Jimmy Conrad.
Oh, shout out to Kylian Mbappe for Kylian Mbappe, 2 goals against Monaco. Good performance from him. He's got 9 goals and 8 assists in 17 games in Liga. That's pretty good. And there's a weird one, though. League 2. Oldham versus Forest Green in League 2 in England. Forest Green top of the table in League 2. Oldham in the relegation zone. Oldham is down 4-1, and they come back and draw 5-5. It's just unbelievable scenes. Unbelievable scenes. It was an incredible game. And I don't know any League 2 fans out there, but I just thought it was a result worth talking about.
Hey, I had one more thing, if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not speaking into the microphone, but Chris Richards. Scoring that goal. And I just want to point out that him scoring that goal, it's fantastic. It's a historic moment for him. It was in stoppage time. It was an incredible, incredible thing. But bigger than that, he to me is sort of a model that I really like, as somebody who went to Bayern Munich and did not get stuck in the vortex of a big club and has decided to go out on loan, did well, said, I want to go on loan again, and forced his hand when I'm looking at the number of young players that we're going to continue to see be attracted, 1, by the big clubs, 2, by clubs' ability to pay the transfer fee needed for an American player now. That is a player taking it on himself to know that he needs to get matches. Yep. And now he's in contention to be a starter for the national team for a World Cup. And he's developing as a player, getting crucial matches, playing for a big team who also, by the way, that was a win against Freiburg, who had been crushing everybody this year. So a huge result. But overall, I just wanted to point that out as a player who has taken it on himself, whether it's with his management team, his family, or whatever, to not just enjoy the life of being at a big club and fade into the distance like many players do, but to make sure that he is blending that with the realities of needing to develop as a player. Yeah, sorry, I get off my pedestal now.
No, please. You have a whole hour tomorrow as well for you guys to discuss that as well, by the way, as the USMNT continue to prepare for January as well, as they look ahead. By the way, that was it. Thank you so much. Don't forget, everybody, as I mentioned, Champions League draw watch along. So make sure you follow us on Que Golazo Pod for all the details. But we're starting that early, 5:50 a.m. Eastern, and we'll be going throughout the whole thing, having some guests, talking about the draw, etc. And then after that, we'll do a nice little recap. And then the boys, Jimmy and Heath, later on that day, will do a USMNT hour, which is live, which is on YouTube, which is always awesome, always growing. Jimmy Conrad, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Heath Pierce, I appreciate you.
You never mentioned my hat, Luis. It matches your shirt. This is the Emirati oil logo.
It's got the same color as the Bud Light beer, so I was just like wondering.
It is a cool color, though. It is a cool color, right? Yeah. So
I dig it. But well done, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of the family. Don't forget to follow us everywhere. Jimmy Conrad on Twitter, Heath Pierce on Twitter, Que Golazo Pod, LMH. Thank you so much. Have a great beginning to your week. We'll see you next time.